Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to this week's gathering of the Bloomington Rotary Club. I am your current president, Sally Gaskill, and I want to thank everyone for being here, both in the Frangipani room and with us on Zoom. Service above self is the motto of Rotary worldwide, and our international theme for this year is Serve to Change Lives. I've been saying that there are 33,000 Rotary clubs worldwide, but in fact, Jim Bright corrected me to say that there are 35,000. Think about it. 35,000 groups like us meeting every week with 1.2 million members ready to reenact the motto. So to start our meeting today, Michael, let's have a moment of silence. Okay. Thank you, and please be seated. And Mike Baker, will you please come forward to give our reflection? And thank you very much for signing up to give the reflection.
Well, first of all, I want to stop a rumor. Dick McKay over here has been trying to tell people that I still have ivermectin at home on the farm. We're out. So, okay, fellow Rotarians, Jim Sims gave us a reflection a few weeks ago on diversity. And everywhere we look, it's in the paper a lot about diversity. A lot of organizations are working to be more inclusive and to build diversity just like our club is. But I wanted to focus on another type of diversity that I think has been important for our club, and that's diversity of thought. Having a club or organization or neighborhood all made up of the same people with the same religion, the same job would probably be a little bit boring. But when I look back at my Rotary experience, back when I joined, and even before then, yes, it was still predominantly men, business men, if you will. And you think of how that's changed over the years for the better. When I look at our past members of our club, we had Pizza Baron, John Bender, and Pilot, Tom Boone, military people. We've had all kinds of different people from real estate and different professions, doctors, judge, track coaches, all kinds of different professions. Out of the last 20 presidents of our club, 9 have been women, and 5 out of the last 8 have been women. That kind of diversity has also, I think, helped our club. So if we look at the last 20 presidents, within that group, there's been a banker, radio and TV people, historian, treasurer, insurance specialist, IU professors, PR specialists, healthcare, librarian, nonprofit managers, businessmen, wealth manager. Lauren's not here, is he? Because he usually has funny socks on. But you know, we've had all kinds of diversity in thought and professions. And each of these past and current club presidents bring some diversity. Our current president brings diversity of the arts to a lot of us that maybe weren't involved in arts and didn't understand the arts. Our president-elect comes from a music background. So when you think of all of these different professions, they've all stood up and been president of our club. And I think that's helped us. And I chose this topic because I hope those of you out there that have not had the opportunity or privilege to serve as a president of this club would consider it, because the diversity of thought in your backgrounds and interests and hobbies and all of that helps make us a better club. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'm definitely proud to be the first arts administrator to be president of our club. So we have a number of guests today whom I'd like to introduce. First on Zoom, Nancy Berner is a guest of Judy Schroeder. When you're on Zoom, just give a wave, and we're so happy that you're here. Suzanne Owen is a guest of the club. Bob Hamill is a guest of the club, and we should all congratulate Bob on the Chicago White Sox getting to the playoffs. That's Owen Johnson clapping. He's the only one. And Jeff Richardson is my guest. Here in the frangipani, I know I've got it somewhere. Jason Milliken, will you please stand? A guest of Len Tierman from Milliken Realty. And Galen Clavio is a guest of Owen Johnson from the Media School. I want to thank, as per usual, our fabulous producer and master of ceremonies, Michael Shermas, here in the corner. Our Zoom manager, whom those of you on Zoom can see, but probably we can't unless you're a small rectangle at the top of the screen. That's Joy Harder. And we may or may not have remote mic operators today, so I'm not going to announce you. But I would like to thank Art Omick for stepping in again and being our greeter. The roundabout reporter this week is Susie Graham on Zoom. And since our program today is all about journalism, I want to give a special thanks to Judy Schroeder, who's here in the frangipani. You may not know, but week in and week out, Judy is our editor-in-chief of our Roundabout newsletter, and she works with the Roundabout reporters to bring us a first-rate professional newsletter on time and on deadline. Thank you very much, Judy. Rotarians with birthdays this week include Tim Jessen, October 8th. Woo. Hal Turner, October 10th. And we have twins. Who knew? I'm kidding. But two people with birthdays on October 11th, Gil Souza and Art Omick. Congrats to everyone. And finally, two Rotarians with member anniversaries this week. That is to say, they have been in the club for X number of years, and we've got, once again, Tim Jessen at 9 years. Congratulations, Tim. He didn't know that. And Sarah Laughlin with 13 years. Congrats to everyone, and thank you for being a part of the Rotary family. On the announcement front today, we like to recognize Rotarians who have been in the news, and Kyla Cox-Deckard, who's here, was honored last week as one of 24 women statewide who will be participating in the 9-month Hoosier Women Forward Leadership Program. Congrats, Kyla. Leslie Green announced her retirement from Stone Belt ARC. I can hardly believe it. Leslie, you've been in this Rotary Club as president of Stone Belt ARC since I became a member in 2002 or so. Truly a purpose-driven life, and I'm looking forward to celebrating your long service at a later date. Another woman frequently in the news, Charlotte Sitlow, will be honored at the 7th annual Rotary Toast on November the 5th. Today, you may have noticed we have brochures that you can take home with you if you forget what Charlotte looks like. I want to thank Elam Barker, our president-elect, who, by the way, can't be here because he's teaching a class this semester, but he'll be back, never fear. Elam Barker's been participating as an active member of the Toast Committee, and he's arranged some really special live music at the Toast. So yet another reason to join the 38 members of our club who have so far already purchased tickets at rotarytoast.com. And then several other items upcoming on the Rotary calendar. First of all, October the 14th, that's next Thursday, we're going to discuss the first selection in our Rotary Book Club, Jim Madison's The Ku Klux Klan in the Heartland. Now, that's only 9 days left to read the book, but I've got a copy and I'm halfway through it, and 80 pages out of 200 are photographs. So I'm just saying, you've got plenty of time to read the book. By the way, there are several mentions of Rotary in his text, which I'm looking forward to talking about. Our October service project is cleaning out Pete Ellis Drive, and we'll be doing that on Saturday, October 23rd, with Jiffy Treat and fun at the end. Please let Michael Shermas know if you can participate. I think we could use a couple more bodies. Third item, every week, someone from our club makes a reflection. Thanks again to Mike Baker for doing it today. only one person has signed up to do this in the coming quarter. This makes me very nervous. So please, please, please do your part and sign up to give the reflection. You can do it either on Zoom or in person. We also need people to relieve Art Omick as our stand-in greeter and also to introduce guests so that I'm not doing it every week, but you get to hear from somebody else here at the Frangipani. So Natalie's going to be sending out the sign-up genius again this afternoon. Please look for it or just send me an email if you can fill in any of those slots, especially the all-important reflection. And finally, we are bringing back lunch buddies. Yes, as previously advertised, and Natalie's going to send out the list, which is together. I know who my lunch buddy is for this quarter. It's Jim Sims. You can meet either via Zoom or in person. I once met Martha Wales at her house for coffee or tea, I think it was. Martha couldn't get out because she'd had hip replacement surgery. It was really great. I love these times when you get to sit down and get to know a fellow Rotarian better. So when you get the lunch buddies list, reach out to your partner. I think at this point, we are going to draw from the hat. And I'm going to ask Owen Johnson to come forth. It's the beginning of a new quarter. And we are going to draw the name of a new local nonprofit organization who will be the recipient of our quarterly speaker recognition program. Here's the hat. Last time I did it on Zoom. No pressure, Owen. You got two? Okay, one.
Wonder Lab.
Woo! Wonder Lab. Wonder Lab it is. And with that, since I've already got Owen Johnson up here, I'm going to ask him to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, President Sally. Our speaker today is rooted in old school journalism. When she was born, the total circulation of daily newspapers was just starting to go down. She admits to having used that antique machine called a typewriter. It's what we used to use in newsrooms. She first fell in love with journalism at Mount Hood Community College in Oregon. She then transferred to the University of Oregon, where she worked with my cousin at the Daily Emerald student newspaper. I suspect that she'll talk a little bit about her journalism experience herself, so I'll only mention a few things to show that she has her journalism chops. At Klamath Falls, her first full-time job in journalism, she won C.B. Bluffin Awards. They honor outstanding journalists in the Pacific Northwest. And she twice won the award for investigative reporting and once for enterprise reporting. One of those investigations focused on the Western drought that was then just beginning. At the Kokomo Tribune, she won awards from the Hoosier State Press Association and the local media association. When she left Kokomo, she came to Bloomington, where she earned an MA in public affairs at IU. Please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to the news director of the Herald Times, Jill Bond.
Right spot. Okay. Thank you, everybody. It's, this is the third time I've had an opportunity to kind of get out and talk to a large group of people. So glad that Rotary is on the list. You guys have been really helpful in making me feel welcome in my new position. Charlotte,
You were like the top of my list to get out and meet. Grateful to see you here, and I hope that November 5th, they honor you well. Connie, I see you on the Zoom there. And Tim, of course, gave me a ride, so thank you very much. And I see you over there, Bill. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about this phrase, doing more with less, and this concept about doing more with less. It's something that's kind of pervasive in journalism, and it's something that culturally we are changing within the Herald Times newsroom and within the Gannett company-wide. Let's see, do I need to hit present here? Are we good? That does it for us, thanks. Okay, in 2009, NPR reporter Chana Jaffe Walt asked lexicographer Ben Zimmer about the phrase, do more with less. She wanted to know, where did it come from? What does it mean? And how has its meaning changed? When we use this phrase in the workplace, what is it that our colleagues are hearing? Zimmer pointed first to Ben Franklin's 1758 essay, The Way to Wealth, which was a summary of his advice from Poor Richard's Almanac. You know, Poor Richard gave us such enduring adages as God helps them that help themselves, and there will be sleeping enough in the grave, which I know better as I'll sleep when I'm dead. Nestled in Franklin's essay is this: let us then up and be doing and doing to the purpose. So by diligence shall we do more with less perplexity. Zimmer's interpretation of this is that Franklin meant work can be made simpler by being focused and industrious. Franklin may have been the first to use the phrase, but it has evolved over the hundreds of intervening years. In journalism, it became ubiquitous, flowing from executives to managers in newsrooms large and small. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what this phrase has meant to me during my career, and how now at the Herald Times, we have awoken to a new day where we just do less, but we do it to the best of our abilities. The video I'm about to show is from the HBO series The Wire, which aired in 2008.
It's a bad time for newspapers, as you all know. The news hole is shrinking as advertising dollars continue to decline. Our circulation numbers are also down as we compete with a variety of media. Technology is driving distribution, and the internet is a free source of news and opinions. Seeking a balance in this new world, we're now faced with hard choices. We opened our first foreign bureau in London in 1924. The Sun's foreign coverage has been a source of pride ever since. So it is with tremendous regret that I tell you that Chicago has made it clear that the bureaus in Beijing, Moscow, Jerusalem, Johannesburg, and London will all be shuttered. Elsewhere in the newsroom, there will be a fresh round of buyouts. Chicago has given us some specific budgetary targets that will require some hard choices throughout the newsroom. We are, quite simply, going to have to find ways to do more with less. So I guess I will turn this over to Tom, who will get into the specifics.
I know some of you have questions. If you could just hold them for me until after I've had a chance to speak.
Pull your clipbook together.
First,
time to find a new
Chicago
home.
has sent us a memo outlining options that are available to those of you and anyone requiring additional information on COBRA benefits and pension payout as part of the voluntary separation plan can schedule an appointment with Human Resources. Some of you will migrate into new positions, while others will, of course, be moving on to other opportunities beyond the sun. But everyone in this room has done excellent work and should be proud of their contributions.
How many buyouts are there?
That hasn't been determined yet. We're talking to the union later today.
How will this affect the upcoming contract negotiations with the Guild?
Badly. Kiss any raise goodbye.
How come there's cuts in the newsroom when the company's still profitable?
There's nobody that feels worse about this than I do. I've seen the excellent work we've done here in Baltimore. The sooner we start meeting with you individually, the sooner I can answer all of your questions.
Oh, Mara. Oh, no.
Good luck, everybody.
I was just an intern, fresh out of journalism school when I first learned the word buyout. I got one of the most coveted positions in the Snowden internship program. It was at the Register Guard in Eugene, Oregon. Back then, it was what the Herald Times was probably like, a powerful voice in the community, respected and admired. But hard times they were coming, and they came for the Register Guard staff in the summer of 2008. When I think back on that time, I remember a tense and taut feeling that stretched across this vast newsroom. It was a union shop, and I figured there might have been a lot of people who were surprised that the union could not protect them from all things, and certainly not this. I was there the day they made the announcement, and it was very much like the scene you just saw from The Wire. That summer, they cut 30 positions. 13 were vacant jobs, and at the time, the Register Guard was employing around 400 people. I think the man who wrote about classical music took the buyout. Those were some of the first jobs to go. And those waves of job losses rolled across the country. Later, when I was in my first full-time job, the publisher stopped getting our rugs cleaned every week. We still had to do furloughs, but that was kind of a hopeful day still, that we could maybe just get through by making small cuts. So the phrase "to do more with less" has really negative connotations for me. It carries with it an impossibility. It's this weird place between relief and guilt, because when I survived a cut, someone else probably didn't. Joffe Walt's article was published in February of 2009. The unemployment rate was 8.1%, and job losses were still coming across many industries. Not end until June of 2009, and the unemployment rate then was 9.5%. Almost 1 in 10 US workers unemployed. As job cuts reverberated across the nation, workers in every industry began hearing this phrase, "do more with less." Zimmer pointed to French economist Frédéric Bastiat as the next contributor to the phrase's evolution. In Economic Harmonies, Bastiat writes, "Man is so constituted that his constant concern is to lessen the ratio of effort to result, to substitute the action of nature for his own action. In a word, to do more with less. His skill, his intelligence, his industry are always directed toward this end." But here Bastiat is talking not of more work for an individual, but of using man's industry to do less work, to make things easier. Joffe Walt reported this meaning endured for centuries. Zimmer said the phrase evolved to carry its current meaning with the arrival of World War II.
America prepares. All America alters its pattern of life and work to meet the demand for protection. Industry is a double step to supply the sinews of safety, the armaments of war that an embattled world must have if democracy is to survive. Mechanical genius joins with the muscle of millions of men, working to win for the ways of freedom. Freedom to think, to speak, to rise, live, and plan with one's fellow man. America's vast resources are harnessed to the job of being the world arsenal for this and other democracies. Its present-day production of armaments is but a mere fraction of the great job that lies ahead. The flow of production in plant and shipyard gains speed. Vessels of all types, carriers, merchantmen, submarines, slip off the ways in growing numbers. and the beat of feet sounds over the land. Feet intent on training, on growing fit for whatever destiny holds ahead. Heroes, every one. Heroes by the million. Men who abandon home and vocations that they may be ready to defend democracy if necessary. Sturdy of body, firm in spirit, seamen, marines, soldiers, and flyers. A huge civilian army joins in this great defense program. Rigid, rough work, this training. Actual combat is simulated, conditions met and mastered. No problem that may arise will find these men wanting. Men like these are not to be stopped. No individual, no evasive words or deeds, no group action or selfish interests will be allowed to impede their growing strength, effectiveness, and safety. For it is they who are sacrificing every advantage of civilian life. They who hold the torch of freedom closest. Every division of the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps is rapidly instructed in the modern methods of defense and offense.
Propaganda was a, oops, I made a mistake. There we go. Propaganda was a huge part of the US war effort, both in urging eligible men to sign up for the draft, but also to garner support from those left stateside. The war effort meant a shift in manufacturing. Household goods gave way to bombs, and the bodies in the factories went from the male form to the female form. Those who remained at home were encouraged to grow victory gardens, to accept and embrace rationing. They were urged to carpool and shamed in continuing to work. The messages about sacrifice in the name of country were not unique to the US. Britain also helped to redefine what it meant to do more with less. The message became clear. To do more with less was the same as sacrificing for the common good. Perhaps it's not actually that far from what Bastiat meant, considering he argued the advances that allow producers to do more with less, innovating to reduce labor inputs while getting the same outputs, eventually those benefits accrue to society at large. Bastiat argued no innovation can be kept secret for long. Once everyone has adopted the advance, its benefit is lower labor costs for the same output. Thus, all profit from the progress of each, and each profits from the progress of all, he said in 1850. I learned a lot about newsroom loss at my first job. It was there I was introduced to the concept of furloughs, one of the many ways of doing more with less. Take one critical person out for a week and spread their work around, continue until every person has been deprived of a week's pay and also shouldered the burdens of others. This is actually doing the same amount with less. And really, that's what doing more with less has meant since the war machine capitalized on it. Do the same amount with less resources, fewer people, diminished support. Recession brought a swiftness to journalism's death by 1,000 cuts. Those cuts continued, and they continue today. In my first newsroom, our outdoors and far-flung locales reporter was a spry, white-haired 60-something whose hiking boots had traversed every hillside in all directions. We lived in the high arid part of the Cascades and the gateway to Crater Lake. Bighorn sheep, bears, and wolves called the surrounding forest home, and Lee had a pun for each one. He talked on occasion about retirement and the types of gifts and parties that used to be commonplace. I recall the coveted item he lamented not getting the chance to receive was a watch. Those were lean years for sure. The Christmas party was a potluck. Lee grumbled about catering. So how do I counter this narrative that has been part of my career for my entire career? Don't make it your new culture. This is a new concept for me, but it is freeing. Stop expecting more. Let go of things that don't get you your desired result. For us, it's been figuring out, what do people really value about our work? How do we focus the resources we have left on doing good journalism that people value? These lean times are probably part of the reason why the idea of letting go of some of the work was so foreign to me. My entire career has been do more with less and less and less and less. It took me some time away to realize we can't do everything we used to do. There's just too few of us left. I'm sure you've heard of burnout. In the pandemic, most of you probably felt it in some form. Some really quality journalists have stepped away, and the job is demanding and stressful. The hours are inconsistent. They often include evenings, and they used to include weekends and holidays too. The news is relentless. The news cycle remains so, but I have tried to encourage my staff to step away from their work. I don't want them to work all night, and I don't want them to put in overtime week after week because I don't want them to burn out. I myself burned out. After 10 years working in newspapers, both as a professional and as a student journalist, I reached an inflection point. I was being asked to move up in our organization. At the same time, I was losing excellent, dedicated journalists to higher paying positions. I saw a dismal future and I felt my drive ebbing. The years of cuts and never-ending demands created this basis for malleus that drove me to leave the profession, and I came here to Bloomington and got a master's degree. Some of my colleagues remember the time before when the Herald Times could do more because it had more people. They recall a newsroom 40 people strong, and now there's nobody left to answer the phone. If somebody does answer the phone, it's probably me. The Register Guard, where I cut my teeth on the state of affairs in my chosen profession, is very much like the Herald Times. It is also owned by Gannett, and it has a handful more newsroom employees than the Herald Times does now. Eugene is also much bigger than Bloomington, but our communities are similar in plenty of other ways. It's the home to University of Oregon. Its newspaper was family owned until it was purchased by Gatehouse in 2018, about a year before Gatehouse acquired the Herald Times. Comparing the Register Guard to the Herald Times reminds me how much this community cares about its newspaper. I feel like from the day I took my first journalism class, I've been told the model is not working and we need to do something. Gannett is at least trying to figure that out. So of the people you see in this photograph, I know for sure 6 people still work at the Herald Times. When I started at the Herald Times, some big transitions were about to happen. The paper was produced by an in-house design staff, and they also laid out other papers in the area, like the Times Mail and the Clay City News. And they were using this Elite Enterprises content management system to publish their website and pull their text and photos onto the page. One transition was moving into Gannett's proprietary system for publishing online and moving our content to the print product, which is designed in Austin. That's Austin, Texas. I listened to each of those employees that were left as they came, and they told me what they were doing. And several were in these catch-all roles where they were trying to do a little bit of this and some of that, and just trying to keep everything going. They were working 6 and 7 days a week. And one told me she couldn't even use her vacation time the previous year. As I entered the world of academics, our country was about to elect Donald Trump as president. And that divide continues to plague our nation and our politics. That was gurgling then. I remember reading the writings of my fellow master's students and thinking, no wonder people are so distrustful of scholars and scientists if this is how we talk to people. I was subscribing to the Herald Times after graduation and took a job with the Census Bureau as a partnership specialist. That role works with existing entities to encourage participation in the census. And every morning I got up and I read the newspaper, and some days I was disappointed. After my service with the Census Bureau was over, I was looking for jobs, casually applying to them. And the opening here at the Herald Times had been advertised for about a month before I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I wrote my cover letter. I wasn't completely sure why I was writing, other than I really want a solid newspaper in my community. And it's one of those situations where if you think you can do better, why don't you go ahead and try? Here I am, I'm trying. So I started with the Herald Times about 6 months ago, and we have certainly seen a lot of change in that time. I've hired 2 new reporters. I've helped my staff adapt to the digital optimization team and a central design hub. We've implemented planning activities that help everyone stay accountable and lower their stress levels. And we've worked to ensure that we're part of this strong network that Gannett has built in Indiana. Now that we're through the hardest of the transitions, we're refocusing and redoubling our efforts to bring you the kind of news and information you value. How do we know it's what you value? We now have this vast array of metrics at our disposal that we can use to gauge our performance on. We know what people click on before they choose to subscribe to us. We know what stories they are reading and how long they spend with those stories. And we know what they're not looking at, and they're not finding those things compelling. I know one of the things people were sad to see go was community contributions, especially those that used to appear like in the neighbors or out and about sections. With our new strategy of survival, we just had to evaluate the time it takes for someone to deal with that kind of stuff and whether our next generation of readers is going to pay us to keep processing and printing those things. Another transition meant one of our team members was going into a new role and would no longer be dedicated just to the Herald Times. She did our entertainment listings. The design center manager says there's no template for this. We don't have a calendar. And so it really became clear to us that to continue to offer the calendar and our printed product was just not something we could do. And we would have to find a different way to write about arts and entertainment in our community because I recognize how important it is. So I published a letter a little while ago asking if it was really that much work to have a calendar. And the simple answer is yes, it's a lot of work. And it doesn't really help us get to our goal, which is ultimately to be sustainable and to make sure that we continue to have readership. To reach sustainability, our company has identified all of you, the subscriber or potential subscribers, as our path forward. I need my writers to write, I need my photographer to take pictures, and I need my editor to edit. There's no news clerk. Nobody has downtime. Every day I'm evaluating whether a photo of a check being presented or a group of people who got together for coffee is of the same value to our readers as covering a government meeting where a decision is being made that affects every one of us. Those are real trade-offs that we're facing. In fact, part of the reason I came back to journalism is that I feel like Gannett, despite all the changes we've had to make to integrate into the company, at least has a direction. It has a plan to keep our craft alive. The news is, after all, the fourth estate and our nation would not be nearly as free without the press keeping our governments accountable on our behalf. So Gannett's ownership of our newspaper has done two things. It brought me back to journalism because I care deeply about our community and I want very much for us to have an excellent newspaper to serve Bloomington, and it gave me hope. The Herald Times office is being cleared out. It is only a matter of time until we're no longer working in that building. As a staff, we are excited to move on. It is a heavy burden to be in a cavernous space with all its constant reminders of the days gone by. As I prepared for this talk, I was looking through hundreds of photos of former employees, and I even found a few gems depicting those longtime journalists that are still in the community. Tim, our circulation director, counted the passing of time by how many glasses frames ago that photo was taken. It's a strange time for many of us. The future is uncertain and we share this. But for years, I've been told that journalism is a dying profession, that we just can't let that happen. We, all of us, I don't mean just journalists, I'm talking about society. I mean all of you. And when I say we must stand for responsible journalism, we must support it if we value it, and if we want our democracy to continue as we have known it so far in our lives. The last press run at the Herald Times was in February of 2020, and it's hard to find a visual depiction of how much shrinkage has occurred. That photo was the best I could do in terms of trying to depict for you what the staff would have looked like just a few short years ago, but there would have been more people than that. The reporters all weren't there. The night press guys weren't there. I mean, it's hard to capture, in a newsroom to actually get everybody. And even when newspapers had company parties, we always had a daytime and a nighttime shift of food. But I did find a few photographs, and I just want to highlight for you. These are the ways that you can support the Herald Times. Subscribe. If you don't subscribe, consider subscribing. It's $1 for 6 months to give us a try. And if you find things of value in the Herald Times, tell people about it. Tell them where you got that information, because it is good information and we are trying very hard to make sure that we are part of the conversation. And then tell people about our $1 for 6 months subscription. If you could help us get the word out that it's worth giving us a go, we would greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to end with just a few photographs that while I was digging around in the archives, this is what I managed to come up with. This is and these photos were just kind of labeled on the back. So if anybody, maybe afterward, if you know anything about these people or these photos, you could tell me more. But this was labeled Daily Herald Staff Christmas 1948. And this one was labeled Herald Telephone Staff Christmas 1950. So we did merge a couple of publications, World Telephone and Daily Herald, in between those two pictures. So this is something that doesn't happen at the Herald Times anymore, but this would have been a really large run. There's tons of newspapers in the front, and all these people on the line here are dealing with the inserts that go inside of the newspaper, and there's tons of newspapers in the back that are ready to go out and be shipped. This depicts just a few years ago, a really large run. This type of activity now happens it happens in Indianapolis for us all the time now. We were going in between Bedford and Indy, but now we're in Indy all the time. So here are some former employees from photos from 1988. I just like it because they're yucking it up, and you can see kind of how much fun it used to be to work in the back part of the newspaper. This was marked to go in the Wall Street Journal. It's a picture of the mailroom insertion equipment from 1995. So this is an undated photo labeled the Herald Telephone. Our best guess is it's possibly election night. And, everything I know about what election night was like at the Herald Times, I learned from Charlotte's book. So that's how I recognize this. So a photo of the Herald Times after it moved to we moved to our current location in 1961, according to some old timers that remember. But that was when we were named the Herald Telephone, and then the Herald Times was actually born in, 1989. A lot of name changes and mergers in the history of the newspaper. All right, well, that is the end of my presentation. I would entertain any questions that you might have. And how do we?
Oh, thank you so much, Jill. If you're on Zoom and have a question, please raise your hand. And if you're here in the Frangipani room, do we have questions? Why don't you come up to the microphone, if you don't mind, Aaron? We'll start with you, and then someone in the back, I can't quite see who, also has a question. Please come up if you can.
Am I heard? So with the closure of various newspapers, like satellite papers around here, as a citizen, how are we supposed to keep government and stuff accountable in these satellite areas, like Owen County or Orange County and those type of places?
Well, I mean, the publications still exist there, but they are, not well staffed. And the only way to ever get another staff member at the Spencer Evening World or at the French Lick paper is if people subscribe and support it. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? If they're not doing a very good job of covering the community, then people drop the paper. And then that results in staff losses and shrinkage. And at some point, the balance sheet says that this is not a profitable thing to continue to do. A lot of small towns have lost their papers in the last few years because frankly, there's nothing left to cut. You know, I mean, the Spencer Evening World's only got one person working at it. And it's a lot to cover schools, government, events, sports with one person. So how do you keep your governments accountable? You know, there have been some pop-up people willing to basically do it for nothing. But if you wanted to see the Herald Times expand its coverage to neighboring communities, then you would need to support the Herald Times as it exists now.
I'm a longtime subscriber. I wrote for the newspaper for 9 years.
Is it on?
And I am very concerned about the content in my newspaper every day. IU plays football. I don't care one bit, but they play football on Saturdays. And there is no coverage of that football game until Monday newspaper. Now, it seems like that makes my newspaper irrelevant. Because why would anybody care about a sports section when it doesn't cover what happened in sports the previous day? So it seems like there has to be, and I don't know this answer, but there has to be another way of covering current events so that the paper remains relevant. Otherwise, we're just basically creating our own destiny, which is failure. So I know that's harsh, but I'm trying to find a way to make it work, and I don't know what that is.
So one of the strategies that we're employing is to change the way that we cover sports, because we recognize that we cannot do game coverage in a timely fashion in a print product anymore. And so we are focusing more on individual players, important moments in games, analyzing what occurred. And so I'm hoping that, you know, you find that to be relevant. And you can, you know, you don't need us to deliver to you 2 days later the score of the game, right? You can find that out basically the second the game is over. So that's what the strategy is that we're employing, is to try to make it more relevant by changing the way that we cover sports. Mm-hmm. Right, and we do go on, you know, we're working as a team on making sure that those things go up online if they're, you know, particularly relevant, like this happened at a meeting last night, and then give you a complete analysis of what it means, because that's something that you don't get from anybody else. They might reach you with the news first, but they're not going to tell you what it means and how it applies to you. And so that's the difference between immediacy and what the newspaper can do.
Raj Hadawi on Zoom has a question. Raj, speak away.
Thank you, Jill, for an interesting presentation. Unfortunately, saddened me, myself, who subscribed to the Herald Times for better than 40 years. The question is, most of the businesses in advertisement play a major role in their revenue, much more than actually the subscriber. Would you be kind enough to break down what percentage revenue from the ad versus the revenue from subscription?
I don't know. I don't know. That's not my area of expertise. I don't know. All I know is my job is to make sure there's worthwhile things in the newspaper to read. And I know that the company direction is to understand that businesses and advertising are not going to sustain us. That's why the focus is on subscribers and creating a new habit with new subscribers on the digital space.
Thank you very much, Jill. That's all the time we've got today for questions. If you can you stay a couple minutes late? Thank you so much. And in honor of your presentation today, we will be making a contribution to Wonder Lab. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next week, our speaker is David Smiley. And another topical program, hiring in the post-pandemic economy, reimagining the hospitality and event industries. So with that, let's close the meeting by reciting the four-way test +1. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? Thank you.
Yeah.